Well, all migrant worker dormitories here in Singapore are expected to be cleared of COVID-19 by early next month. Now, the only exception will be 17 standalone blocks which serve as quarantine facilities. The ministerial taskforce on COVID-19 says that the vast majority of foreign workers will also be cleared by then, except for 28,000 of them who are still serving out isolation periods. Gwyneth Teo has been covering the taskforce briefing. Gwyneth, what does this mean for businesses?
So what this actually means for businesses is that they should be starting to get ready for their workers to come back and join their businesses again, restart again. So the ministerial task force actually said that this is the time now over the next 2-3 weeks to make sure that all your safe distancing measures are in place. If, for example, you run a construction business or any other business that uses migrant workers for, say, essential services, this is the time now to make sure you've got safe distancing measures, not just at work sites, but also on your transportation and also in the housing of these migrant workers. Work with the Building and Constructions Authority, work with the Economic Development Board, submit these requirements, submit what your proposals and what you've already done, get them cleared so that by the middle of August, when the majority of migrant workers are prepared to come back into your economy, business will also be ready to resume. Now, as for these 28,000 workers who are still only completing their isolation by the first week of August, now this group of people, there will be further testing. It will take a little bit more time. Some of them may need to be isolated a little bit more go into quarantine again. There's still that cycle that's going to take place, especially because these are actually the group of people who are staying in dorms with a very high prevalence of COVID-19. So the task force actually alerted everybody and said that actually in the coming few weeks, we may see that case numbers may seem to rise just because of more aggressive testing.
Because we are now reaching, gaining momentum in this final stage for dorm clearance for testing, the high numbers of recorded and reported in the media will likely continue for the next week or so. And in fact, the numbers may also increase compared to what it was over the last few days. And this is just because we are now testing a lot more aggressively in the remaining dormitories with a view towards clearing the remaining workers that are there.
So, Gwyneth, what does this mean for the general public then? What's the roadmap ahead and how long is phase 2 going to last?
So in terms of, the roadmap ahead, in terms of phase 2, I think everybody wants to know, when can we go into phase 3? When will all this be over? Now, actually, unequivocally, the task force said that we will probably remain in phase 2 for a little bit while longer. The next checkpoint is actually a few weeks after the dorms have been completely cleared. And that's when they will assess again the kinds of measures that will be taken then. And that will be very unlikely to go into phase 3, for example. They actually said that it's most likely to be a loosening of the current parameters. So, for example, you've got, say, 20 people who are allowed to attend wedding solemnizations, or a group of people who are also allowed to go to, say, places of worship. Now, these parameters, it's more likely that these parameters will loosen up, maybe increase to 50, maybe a little bit more, slowly, progressively, rather than rush into the phase 3, which will be the new normal of living with COVID-19. But very immediately, right now, the task force said that the main problem is that there is what they see as a large congregations of people who are going to places like parks, beaches, nightlife, and that's a place where they will be stepping up enforcement, stepping up operations. So, for example, at East Coast Park, they noted there's a stretch between, say, the hawker center and the McDonald's, where lots of people have been going over the past few weeks. So they will be having more officers go, controlling the crowds. When they see that there's an overcapacity, too many people, they may stop entry altogether, and that's something that they will be doing to control the number of people there. And the last thing on the horizon, or rather the next thing on the horizon, is actually the opening of the border between Singapore and Malaysia. Now, that's supposed to be slated for August 10th, but that's really for essential workers, official travel, and also working towards having more daily commuting between people who need to live and work between the two countries. But as for, all of us who want to, dying for a long weekend trip to travel to Johor Bahru, for instance, actually the Health Minister Minister said also quite unequivocally that that's very unlikely to happen in the near future. So generally speaking as well, travel between Singapore and other countries really depends on infection rates in other countries as well. So don't hold your breath for that, everyone.
Indeed, thanks for that. Our reporter Gwyneth Chia speaking to us on the multi-ministry task force briefing updates.